Janie, please, not now. We've got something very important to settle here.
Oh, you mean about O'Rourke and Agar not talking?
Yes.
It ran for 2 seasons on ABC, set inside a crumbling army fort in post-Civil War Kansas, staffed by soldiers who couldn't march straight, a sergeant running an illegal business with the local tribe, and a captain who accidentally started his military career by triggering the wrong cavalry charge. F Troop premiered on September 14, 1965, and the people who brought Fort Courage to life each week had stories behind them that were as strange and as funny as anything on screen. Here is the F Troop cast, then and now in 2026, and only the true fans will recognize all of them today. The show, F Troop, aired on ABC from September 14, 1965 to April 6, 1967. 2 seasons, 65 episodes, with Season 1 filmed in black and white and Season 2 in color, reflecting the mid-decade television industry's rapid transition to color broadcasting. The show was produced by Warner Brothers Television and created by Richard M. Bluell, Ed James, and Seaman Jacobs. The premise was a Civil War comedy in the spirit of Bilko. Captain Wilton Parmenter, an accidentally heroic officer who had earned his rank by inadvertently triggering a cavalry charge, is assigned to Fort Courage, Kansas, a posting that functions as a dumping ground for the Army's least useful personnel. His non-commissioned officers, Sergeant O'Rourke and Corporal Agarn, run a series of illegal business enterprises in partnership with the local Hikawi tribe, whose chief Wild Eagle is as entrepreneurially minded as O'Rourke himself. The joke running through all of it was that the most dangerous thing at Fort Courage was the bugler's trumpet playing. The show received 1 Emmy nomination during its run, Larry Storch for outstanding continued performance by an actor in a leading role in a comedy series. In 1967, he lost to his childhood friend Don Adams, who was nominated for Get Smart. The show went into syndication after its cancellation and found the loyal audience that network scheduling had never quite given it. Forrest Tucker, Sergeant Morgan O'Rourke. Sergeant Morgan O'Rourke was the most competent man at Fort Courage, which is not quite the compliment it sounds, given what Fort Courage was. He ran O'Rourke Enterprises, a web of commercial ventures conducted in partnership with Chief Wild Eagle behind Captain Parmenter's back, and at the expense of any visiting dignitary unfortunate enough to wander into range. He was played by Forrest Tucker across all 65 episodes with the specific quality of a large man who has calculated every situation in the room and is already 3 moves ahead. Forrest Meredith Tucker was born on February 12, 1919 in Plainfield, Indiana. He was a physically imposing presence from early on. 6 feet 5 inches tall, broad-shouldered, with a quality of comfortable authority that he carried into every room he entered. At 14, he worked at the 1933 Chicago World's Fair, pushing wicker tourist chairs during the day and singing for tips from tourists at night. The following year, the family relocated to Washington, D.C., where Tucker attended Washington Lee High School in Arlington, Virginia, the same school that later produced Shirley MacLaine, Warren Beatty, and Sandra Bullock, though not all at the same time. He entered show business as a vaudeville straight man at 15, and his ambitions were clear enough that he bypassed college entirely and went west toward California. A mentor provided funds and contacts, and a party hostess named Cobina Wright persuaded a director named Wesley Ruggles to give Tucker a screen test, pointing to his height, his hair, and his face as reasons not to send him back east. Tucker was a sight reader who reportedly needed only 1 take, which was the most practical recommendation anyone could have given him. He enlisted in the United States Army during World War II and was eventually commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant before returning to acting after the war. The Army service interrupted a film career that had been building steadily since the late 1930s, when he had made his debut and begun accumulating credits at Warner Brothers and other studios. His post-war film career was built largely on westerns and action films for Republic Pictures, which was exactly the kind of blonde, large-framed physical presence that the Western genre required and that Republic supplied to television and theater audiences through the late 1940s and early 1950s. He appeared in Sands of Iwo Jima in 1949, supporting John Wayne in a notable supporting performance as a Marine corporal bearing a grudge against Wayne's gung-ho sergeant. He was top billed in a long run of Republic action pictures: Rock Island Trail, 1950, California Passage, 1950, Ride the Man Down, 1952. That built his recognition without quite making him a star of the First Order. The moment that changed his profile came in 1958, when director Morton DaCosta cast him as Beauregard Burnside, the first of Mame's husbands? In Anti-Mame, opposite Rosalind Russell. The film was the highest-grossing American release of that year, and Tucker's Beauregard Burnside, warm, foolish, and entirely in Mame's thrall, was a revelation to audiences who knew him only from Westerns. He was funny in a way that required size and ease rather than quickness, and DaCosta, the director of both Anti-Mame and the original Broadway production of The Music Man, took specific note of what Tucker could do with a comic line and a room full of people. DaCosta cast Tucker in the national touring production of The Music Man in 1958 as Professor Harold Hill, the role that Robert Preston had originated on Broadway and made completely his own. Tucker played Harold Hill 2,008 times over the next 5 years across the United States, and including a 56-week run at the Schubert Theater in Chicago, playing a role that famous for that long, in comparison to a performance as celebrated as Preston's original, required a specific kind of professional confidence that Tucker apparently had no difficulty supplying. After the tour, he went to Broadway in Fair Game for Lovers in 1964, completing a stage career that had started in vaudeville 30 years earlier and grown considerably in the intervening decades. The transition from Broadway back to television brought him to F Troop in 1965, where the character of O'Rourke suited him the way few roles do. It required exactly the combination of size, comic authority, and easy warmth that Tucker had spent 3 decades developing. After F Troop, he continued working steadily through the late 1960s and into the 1970s and 1980s, including a notable appearance in The Night They Raided Minsky's in 1968, directed by William Friedkin. He received the Golden Boot Award in 1983 for his contributions to the Western genre. In 1986, he was awarded a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, and the ceremony became a story of its own. Tucker collapsed on his way to the ceremony on August 21, 1986, and was hospitalized. He died 2 months later before being able to attend. Forrest Tucker died on October 25, 1986 in Woodland Hills, California, at the age of 67. The cause was lung cancer. He was married 4 times and had 3 children: Larry Storch, Corporal Randolph Agarn. Corporal Agarn was O'Rourke's right hand, his faithful accomplice, and the man most likely to make any scheme more complicated than it needed to be. He was shorter than O'Rourke, louder than O'Rourke, and more obviously alarmed by everything around him. And the comedy between Tucker and Storch, big and small, calm and frantic, the planner and the executor who executes slightly wrong, was one of the most reliable comedic dynamics in 1960s television. Lawrence Samuel Storch was born on January 8, 1923, in New York City. He grew up in the Bronx, the son of a realtor and a telephone operator, in a neighborhood dense with the kind of multi-ethnic, multi-accented humanity that produces great impressionists. The accents of the block, the specific rhythms of immigrant speech, the collision of New York dialects, the variety of voices that constituted ordinary urban life in the 1930s, were the raw material for a talent that would take Storch from $12 a week at a band shell in Brooklyn to Emmy nominations 6 decades later. Storch had an ear for voices from the beginning. a talent he described as starting as a juvenile game of provoking laughs through mimicry, and that became, over the following 8 decades, one of the most versatile performing instruments in American comedy. He could do accents, he could do famous voices, he could do regional dialects, and he could do original characters whose voices made them immediately recognizable without reference to anyone real. The range was what made Corporal Agarn work, an American from New Jersey who somehow had 3 foreign cousins, each requiring a completely different accent, and Storch played all of them convincingly in the same series. He attended DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx alongside Don Adams, who remained his closest friend for the rest of his life. He never graduated, the Depression had other plans, and instead found work as a stand-up comic for $12 a week, opening for bandleader Al Donahue at the Band Shell in Sheepshead Bay. At 17, he appeared on a bill at the Paramount Theater in New York, alongside Benny Goodman and Peggy Lee. He then went to World War II, serving as a seaman aboard the submarine tender USS Proteus, the same ship on which actor Tony Curtis also served, and the beginning of a lifelong friendship between the two men. After the war, a chance meeting with comedian Phil Harris in Palm Springs led to an opening act slot for Lucille Ball and Dizzy Arnaz's live show, which led to television appearances. Storch hosted Cavalcade of Stars on the Dumont Television Network in 1951 and had his own short-lived NBC program in 1953. His gift for impressions gave him a career-long calling card. His Cary Grant was so precise that a story circulated for years about the Judy, Judy, Judy line that Grant was famous for saying but actually never said. The real origin, by multiple accounts, was Storch doing his Cary Grant impression in a room when Judy Garland walked in, and an urban legend was born from the collision. His friendship with Tony Curtis gave him a run of supporting roles through the early 1960s. Curtis actively brought Storch into several of his films, including Who Was That Lady? 1960, 40 Pounds of Trouble, 1962, Sex and the Single Girl, 1964, and The Great Race, 1965. He worked in nightclubs and in television through the decade, developing a reputation for the kind of physical comedy and vocal transformation that made him a natural fit for Corporal Agarn. In animation, Storch's voice career ran parallel to his live-action work, to a second profession of equal significance. He voiced Mr. Whoopi, the all-knowing professorial expert who arrived with his 3-dimensional blackboard to answer any question that Tennessee Tuxedo and Chumley couldn't figure out themselves on Tennessee Tuxedo and his tales. From 1963 to 1966, the show aired on CBS, and the character was beloved by children who would grow up to recognize Storch's voice in entirely different contexts years later. He voiced Coco the Clown for a 1962 syndicated revival series drawing on the Max Fleischer creation from 1919. He worked for Warner Brothers' 7 Arts, voicing Cool Cat and Merlin the Magic Mouse. He voiced the Joker on the Batman/Superman Hour in 1968 and 1969, among other superhero animated productions. He voiced characters on Sabrina the Teenage Witch from 1969 to 1972, on The Brady Kids from 1972 to 1973, and contributed to dozens of other animated productions across the following decades. His animation credits totaled nearly 200 separate voice appearances across more than 60 years, a body of work that most dedicated voice actors of a later generation would have found difficult to match in a full career. He was nominated for the Emmy Award for Outstanding Continued Performance by an actor in a leading role in a comedy series for F Troop in 1967. He lost to Don Adams, his childhood friend from DeWitt Clinton, who was nominated for Get Smart. The pairing, 2 old friends nominated in the same category, has a specific quality of New York Jewish comedy history that no amount of coincidence could have manufactured. Storch married actress Norma Catherine Grieve on July 10, 1961. They were together until her death in 2003. He received the Barrymore Award for Lifetime Achievement in Film and TV from the Fort Lee Film Commission in 2013. He was honored by the Friars Club in 2014 at age 91. Larry Storch died on July 8, 2022, in his apartment on the Upper West Side of Manhattan at the age of 99. He was 6 months past his 99th birthday. He had been active professionally, performing and making appearances well into his 90s. Ken Berry, Captain Wilton Parmenter. Captain Wilton Parmenter was the most improbable commander in the history of the United States Army. He had earned his rank by accidentally sneezing at the Battle of Appomattox, which had been mistaken for the order to charge, which had turned a rout into an accidental victory, which had sent him to Fort Courage as his superior's way of ensuring he did no further damage. He was good-hearted, chronically flustered, and physically graceful in a way that expressed itself mostly in pratfalls. And the last of those qualities was the most important, because Ken Berry was a trained dancer who brought to physical comedy a body control that made every stumble look like something that had taken months of rehearsal. Kenneth Ronald Berry was born on November 3, 1933, in Moline, Illinois. His father was an accountant. His mother was a homemaker. He watched a children's dance performance at a school assembly around age 12 and decided immediately that he wanted to do what those children were doing. He began taking tap dance lessons and, at 16, won a spot in Horace Heights' Youth Opportunity Program, a touring talent showcase that traveled to towns across America. After high school, he was drafted into the United States Army. While stationed in Atlanta, one of his superior officers was a sergeant named Leonard Nimoy, who would become one of the most recognized faces in science fiction television history as Spock on Star Trek a decade later. Nimoy, recognizing what he was looking at in Berry, told him when his enlistment ended in 1955 to go to California and pursue acting. Berry followed the advice literally. During his Army service, he won the All-Army Talent Contest, which brought him to national television. He appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show as a result of the win, at a time when appearing on Sullivan was essentially a formal announcement that you had arrived in the entertainment industry. After his discharge, he studied acting on the GI Bill in Los Angeles, worked in regional theater, and built the performing foundation that eventually brought him to the Billy Barnes Revue, a Broadway musical revue that ran from 1958 to 1964, in which Berry appeared as a dancer, comedian, and all-around physical performer. Lucille Ball attended a performance of the revue and offered him a position at Dieselu Productions, her studio. His television career built through the early 1960s, appearances on Dr. Kildare, guest spots across the CBS and ABC schedules, before F Troop landed him in a role that suited his gifts exactly. Captain Parmenter's physical incompetence required a performer who was actually physically extraordinary, because the pratfalls had to look real and the comic timing had to be precise, and Berry brought both. After F Troop, he took over the lead of Mayberry RFD in 1968, replacing Andy Griffith when Griffith departed The Andy Griffith Show, and the series was retooled. Mayberry RFD ran until 1971. Then came Mama's Family in 1983, the NBC, and later syndicated comedy in which Berry played Vinton Harper, the good-natured, somewhat hapless son of Vicki Lawrence's mama. Across 130 episodes through 1990, the show gave him a second generation of fans who knew him entirely separately from Fort Courage. He married actress Jackie Joseph in 1960, and they adopted 2 children. The marriage ended in divorce in 1976. His son, John Kenneth Berry, died on January 8, 2016, from a brain tumor. His longtime partner in his later years was Susie Walsh, who was with him until his death. Ken Berry died on December 1, 2018, in Burbank, California, at the age of 85. Melody Patterson, Wrangler Jane. Wrangler Jane. Angelica Thrift was the proprietor of the Town Trading Post, a self-reliant, capable woman who ran the local commerce, delivered the mail, and pursued Captain Parmenter with a determination that he found bewildering. She was played by Melody Patterson across all 65 episodes, and the remarkable thing about Patterson's casting, which only emerged clearly years after the fact, was that she was 15 years old when the show began. Melody Patricia Patterson was born on April 16, 1949, in Inglewood, California. Her mother, Rosemary Wilson, had been a Warner Brothers dancer who had doubled for Joan Crawford in several films. Patterson was performing from the age of 4 and was enrolled at the Hollywood Professional School, where she continued her education during the production of F Troop. She auditioned for the role, reportedly on a lark, without particular expectation of getting it, and was asked to read from the script of the Doris Day film, Calamity Jane. Calamity Jane happened to be Patterson's favorite film, one she had watched enough times to know every scene and line from memory. The audition went extremely well. When the producers asked her age, she told them she was 18. She was 15. The birth certificate she provided had been altered to show a different birth date. She was hired and began filming at 15, turning 16 during the show's first season. The production accommodated her continuing education on the Warner Brothers lot. What makes the Patterson casting story particularly striking is the context. The year was 1965. She was 15 years old. She was appearing in a primetime network comedy on ABC, filmed at Warner Brothers Studios, in a role that put her in every episode of the series for 2 seasons. She continued her high school education in the Warner Brothers Studio School during production. Nobody involved in the production made her situation public, and the actual details only emerged clearly many years after the show had ended. After F Troop was canceled in 1967, Patterson entertained American troops in Vietnam on behalf of the Armed Forces Radio Service, a commitment that reflected a generation's specific relationship to the war, and a willingness to put her celebrity to a direct use at a moment when that use was genuinely needed. She continued working in television through the late 1960s and into the 1970s, appearing on Adam 12, Green Acres, and several episodes of Hawaii Five-0, the last of which had a specific personal resonance because she was married to James MacArthur from 1970 to 1975, and MacArthur was one of the stars of Hawaii Five-0 as Dano Williams. They appeared on screen together in 3 episodes of the show during their marriage. She worked in theater, radio, and television through the following decades, and appeared at F Troop fan events and reunions through the years. Her former co-star, Larry Storch, announced her death on Facebook with a tribute that was as direct and as warm as anything he ever said on screen. It's with a heavy heart that we can let you know our beloved Wrangler Jane, Melody Patterson, passed away today. Our hearts are sad today. R.I.P. Sweet Melody, we love you. Melody Patterson died on August 20th, 2015 in Hollister, Missouri at the age of 66. Multiple organ failure was the cause. James Hampton, Private Hannibal Dobbs. Private Hannibal Dobbs was the fort's bugler, a man of supreme confidence in his musical abilities and equally supreme incompetence in their execution. His réveillé was an event that the rest of Fort Courage dreaded. He appeared in all 65 episodes, and James Hampton played him with a quality of earnest musical self-belief that never wavered no matter how aggressively the evidence mounted against him. James Hampton was born on July 9, 1936, in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. He had the specific gift of playing sincerity, characters who genuinely believed in what they were doing and communicated that belief with a warmth that made audiences like them, even when the evidence around them was damning. That quality served him across a long and varied career. He appeared in The Longest Yard in 1974, Burt Reynolds' prison football film. As caretaker, the equipment manager who assembles the ragtag inmate team that forms the film's story. Caretaker was the kind of role that could be played for pure comic relief, and that Hampton instead gave a dignity and a depth that made the film's emotional beats work. He appeared in Hannie Calder in 1971, the Western starring Raquel Welch. He appeared in The China Syndrome in 1979. In Teen Wolf in 1985, he played Harold Howard, Michael J. Fox's father, a warm, supportive presence in a film that needed exactly that anchor. His television career spanned decades and included recurring appearances across multiple drama and comedy series. He also appeared in the television film The Longest Yard sequel projects and maintained a steady professional presence in film and television well into the 1990s. James Hampton is 89 years old in 2026. He is the last surviving principal cast member of F Troop. Frank DeCova, Chief Wild Eagle. Chief Wild Eagle was the leader of the Hikawi, the local tribe whose principal occupation, when they weren't pretending to raid Fort Courage, was partnering with O'Rourke Enterprises for mutual profit. Wild Eagle and O'Rourke had arrived at a practical arrangement. The tribe got commercial opportunities they wouldn't otherwise have had. O'Rourke got cultural authenticity he couldn't manufacture on his own, and Captain Parmenter remained entirely unaware of the whole structure. Frank DeCova played Wild Eagle with the same quality of dignified pragmatism that Tucker brought to O'Rourke, a man running his operation, keeping his counsel, and watching the chaos at Fort Courage with a tolerant, experienced eye. Frank DeCova was born on March 30th, 1910 in New York City. He had a long career in film and television, built on his ability to play a wide range of ethnic characters with conviction and physical specificity at a time when Hollywood's casting of ethnic roles was considerably less diverse than its production of them required. His face and his bearing gave him a range of possibilities across westerns, crime dramas, and historical pictures. He appeared in 63 episodes of F Troop across both seasons. Frank DeCova died on October 15, 1981 in Los Angeles at the age of 71. Heart failure. F Troop ran for 2 seasons and 65 episodes, got 1 Emmy nomination, and disappeared from ABC's schedule in April 1967. The audience that found it in syndication was considerably larger than the one that had watched it on its original network run, and the show's reputation grew in the years after cancellation in ways it hadn't during its broadcast life. Of the principal cast covered here, only James Hampton is still with us in 2026 at 89. Forrest Tucker died in 1986 at 67, having collapsed on his way to receive a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, a detail that has the specific quality of something that would have happened to Sergeant O'Rourke if fate were working from a script. Larry Storch lasted until 2022 at 99, active and performing well into his final decade, the last of the 3 principals to go. Ken Berry died in 2018 at 85. A trained dancer who had found that physical comedy was the truest expression of everything he knew about performance, and who spent more than 50 years proving it. Melody Patterson died in 2015 at 66 in Missouri, the 15-year-old girl who had walked onto a network television set with a forged birth certificate and a complete knowledge of the Calamity Jane script, and had made it work for 2 seasons. Frank DeCova, who played Chief Wild Eagle with the kind of quiet authority that made the Hikawi the smartest characters at Fort Courage, died in 1981 at 71. The show earned 1 Emmy nomination, ran for 2 seasons, and disappeared from ABC's primary schedule in April 1967. The audience that found it in syndication was larger than the one that had watched it on its original network run, and for the people who found it there, on a Saturday afternoon in the 1970s, or during a late-night cable run in the 1980s. Fort Courage became one of those specific television places that you remember more completely than most things from that era. Fort Courage was a fiction. The people who populated it were entirely real. If this kind of television history is what brings you here, hit that like button and subscribe. There's a lot more of it coming, and we'll see you for the next one.